everyone, and welcome back. Today we're talking about stress, and we're actually going to be implementing ideas on how to reduce stress. But before we do that, I want to just tell you that when I think about stress, I think that I wish I had a magic hat, and instead of pulling out a cute little rabbit, I'd love to be able to just make your stress go away just like that. But it's still here, right? I can't do that. So let's put some implementation strategies together today. So when we think about stress, there's short-term stress and long-term stress, and we all know that. But I want to make sure you really have all the knowledge you need to know about the good and the bad first, because it's the yin and the yang. You know, I've talked about balance and how balance is not just on one straight line, that it's actually an oscillating up and down, as long as we just oscillate gently up and down around that horizon, right? So in the short term, there's a lot of positive things about stress. I mean, it increases our motivation. You know, like if you're preparing for a test, or you're preparing for something, or a video, you know, you're more motivated to get it done. If you're, you know, going to your daughter's or grandchild's event, you know, you're more motivated to eat right and exercise so you can look your best before the event, right? It also increases our memory temporarily. It's been shown to actually improve test scores. So acute stress is not bad for that. And temporarily, it increases our immune function, decreases inflammation, and increases resiliency. When we have these little short spurts of stress, we learn to deal with them better. That first big stressor that we had, I mean, that was the hardest one, right? But we just keep having to fight and get better and better at getting rid of whatever it is and being able to handle what it is. It also increases our sense of awareness, our sight, our hearing, how we feel. And speaking of that, it can increase your sex drive. So some women actually have increased sex drive when they get under an acute short-term stress. And actually, about 10% of women have increased sex drive when they have chronic stress. It's a small percentage. Most women are not like that, but there are some women who actually eliminate stress through this avenue. But then long term, we've got a lot more to worry about. And this is what we're talking about, and this is why we have to implement strategies. So it does decrease your memory, and it does decrease your immune function. It increases weight, right? Increase heart attacks. In fact, you're more likely to have your first heart attack if you are undergoing chronic stress. It increases your blood pressure and your risk of stroke. Of course, increases hot flashes. We know that women who have a lot of stress, actually whether short-term or long-term, you can have there's nothing like having an acute stressor and an acute hot flash. They go hand in hand. That's what you're here for, right? Increases depression and anxiety, increases our sleep disturbance, increases IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, more constipation, more diarrhea, sometimes just one or the other. A story on that. Whew. I took care of my grandkids for a week when my son and his wife went to Hawaii for a very short visit. And oh my God, I had never been so constipated. It was so stressful. I was calling my girlfriend and begging her to come and help me. They're great kids, but it was just me, right? So increased hair loss, increased headaches, increased blood sugars, increased risk of developing diabetes. Pain, chronic pain, is often related to long-term stressors, and it's back and forth like a hamster on that hamster wheel. increased viruses. You have more colds. You have more cold sores that come out on your lips. Both herpes simplex virus 1 and 2 increase with stress. Shingles is often related to chronic stress. Shingles can also be related to acute stress as well. Skin problems, people break out in their psoriasis more frequently. We get pimples more frequently when we're under long-term stress, and often short-term stress too. And the entire change of our microbiome in our gut occurs with long-term stress. There's so much research on this now, and it's exciting because it has a lot to do with weight. We're finding that the microbiome has a lot to do with how we gain weight, how we lose weight, and how we gain weight back has a lot to do with this microbiome. All right, so next let's look at how to implement ideas. So we have best strategies and the worst strategies, right? So everything under best strategies on how to implement ideas is going to be under self-care. Everything that is worst strategies is going to be about self-sabotage, right? So under self-care, we've got physical self-care, social self-care, spiritual self-care, and emotional and mental self-care. And under self-sabotage, we all know this. And when you're reminded of it, you can ward it off and move over to this other side of the yin-yang. Junk food, that's sabotage. That's a bad strategy to take care of stress. Comfort food is not so comfortable after you've gained weight or after you've eaten it and feel bloated. It's not so comfortable anymore. So junk food is self-sabotaging. Alcohol is self-sabotaging. Smoking, too much caffeine, hibernating, staying inside and not socially getting out is self-sabotaging. Oversleeping, we know that stress actually increases with more than 8 hours of sleep on a consistent basis, unless there are outliers. So know that I'm talking in general terms. There are outliers. There are some people who need more than 8 hours of sleep. My husband's one of them. He has always needed 9 hours of sleep, and my son too. So oversleeping in general over 8 hours tends to show that cortisol goes up. Dwelling and ruminating on something, just letting it churn and churn, that's a self-sabotage. We've got to stop and move forward. We actually have to tell ourselves that. And the no way out attitude. We all get there sometimes, and sometimes what that does is it spikes the cortisol even more on an acute basis, and then you put yourself in the self-care mode because you realize you're in the no way out attitude. So how about some specifics, some more specifics? So under physical self-care, this first one, let's take a look at them. So gentle exercise like yoga, and how about dancing and singing and sex and hobbies? We know hormones, we've got to balance those. Very important physical self-care. Sleeping the 8 hours. Pressure points. So if you're ever in the car and this happened to me just the other day, driving from Trenton to Sarasota. I had an appointment that I had to make in Sarasota, and it was a dead stop on the highway. And I had to start using the pressure points to calm myself. Decreasing obligations, extremely important. We tend to extend ourselves. And then, of course, healthy foods. How about social self-care, right? Girlfriends, sometimes we need to get help and give or get a hug. Go out with our girlfriends or our sisters, our mom. How about a mentor, talking with and choosing a mentor? It could be someone on the internet that you don't even see. I've got several mentors. Engage with your family and just go outside. This is a social self-care. Then how about emotional and mental self-care? Laughing, decreasing our to-do list. Sometimes we just need to decrease our to-do list, right? We need to mark off everything except for 3 things and say, this is all we're going to think about. This is all we can do. Self-talk. I use that a lot. It's silly. I mean, it's not silly. It's great. And a psychologist that I work with actually told me, he goes, oh, I said, it's like I always find myself saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Everything's fine. He says, oh, Karen, that's just self-talk. And I said, oh, wow. He goes, it works. Keep doing it. Essential oils. I have an essential oil aromatherapy diffuser in my living room, one in the bedroom. I use them all the time. Visualization. Did you know there's actually a known way to visualize things that are on your mind and you can just poof them away? And that's to look at them, because sometimes you can't hold them. So you can't hold the thought. You can't hold it in your hand. So you can visualize it up in a cloud, and you think to yourself, well, watching it in that cloud, and then just watch the cloud drift away. Taking a bath. Some women do wonderful with a bath. And pets. Pets are fabulous for our emotional and mental state. Petting our pets, just looking at our pets, watching them, they're funny. Journaling. We know journaling is wonderful. Lighting candles, soy candles, something that doesn't put off smoke. And these are wonderful. So they create an ambiance, and the ambiance is all about feeding our soul. Taking time off. We have to take time off. Writing thank you notes. Writing thank you notes is so healing. I've got a handful of thank you notes I need to write right now. Maybe I'll do that today. How about spiritual self-care? So important. Meditation, prayer, a God jar. My first nurse, oh my gosh, she was so wonderful. She had a very deep spiritual connection, or does. And she used to tell her patients, look, you need a God jar. Just get a jar, empty jar with a lid on it, and every time you have a problem, you open the jar, put it in there, and close it. That's your God jar. Sacred acoustics. If you have not heard of them, Google them. Sacred acoustics. I think it's sacredacoustics.com, but they're magnificent. Oh, their downloads are about $15. They are so worth it. When you're in the middle of a big stressor, it's hard for the brain to calm down. And so this is music you put on your headset, and they are long. They're about an hour long. I think I have one called Whole Theta. And what it does, it puts your brain in a very deep meditative state almost immediately. So you don't have to meditate yourself or try to meditate yourself, because this just puts you in that meditative state. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it. Going out and being in nature. There's something about nature. It's part of us. It's our universe that we're connected to. Silence, just plain old silence. I think that's one of the reasons why women like baths, if they can close the door and not have anyone knocking or sticking notes under the door, right? Mindfulness, that's really important. Where are we right now? What are we feeling right now that's beautiful? What looks beautiful around us? Deep breathing exercises. And then of course I have to put the beach, because right now I'm at the beach. I wanted to actually do this video for you with the beach in the background, but it was just too hard. So I'm sorry. But anyway, okay. So that's some good implementation strategies that you can put into action. So before I leave you, I want to give you just one more reminder and use also some words of wisdom from a magnificent man that is no longer with us as of recent. And that was my dad. And he taught me this when I was just a little girl. And here's that horizon. And this part that we'd love to say is balance and stay on, right? It's not reality, because he would say, Karen, life is full of ups and downs, and that is what life is all about. Up and down. And when you're at the top, you're going to say, I'm at the top of the world. But honey, be careful. Don't get cocky, because life is full of ups and downs, and you are going to have a down. So don't get cocky. And then when you're down here hanging on at the low part, and you say, I'm in a funk, then my dad would say, honey, don't worry, don't worry. There's only one way to go, and it's up, because life is cyclical. Okay? All right, I hope this helps you, and I love having you here. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.